longtime friend of Kai's mom, Siobhan, and also
Obs.
Bob's mother, Siobhan, and also his father, Stephen Nance, who I know is Stephen Aki Nance. And I'm very honored that I was asked by Siobhan to come speak today because Stephen was such an amazing human being, and it's an honor to be here his uh, in his place. So I work in the film and the music industry, and I have since I was about 18 years old. I went to college and got a bachelor's degree in English, which was actually in creative writing and poetry. And then after college, I worked in the film industry for about 7 years and worked on tons of movies and shows, which you guys are probably old enough to have seen, unfortunately, some of them. Some bigger movies like Terminator and Breaking Bad. And after that, I went to work at a state-of-the-art recording facility in Santa Fe called Stepbridge Studios, where we did, music recording, audio engineering, and such. And in 2009-10, I started my own recording studio called Spinning Soul Studios, which I am currently renovating into a more of a state-of-the-art film post-production and music production studio. Through all these years, I've also been a musician, and the kind of music I do is hip-hop. So, and Aki, Stephen, was an amazing poet, writer, humanitarian, and hip-hop artist. And him and I met when I was 18 years old. And both of us were kind of just starting out, getting our bearings as far as in writing and expression, and even as who we were as humans. But back when I started with Aki, there wasn't very many people doing hip hop in Albuquerque. And also, I know a lot of you guys probably, I don't know if you guys listen to any rap or hip hop music. No? So the kind of music that we did and I continue to do, and lots of recordings that Aki has, was very different than what you would hear on the radio or even in contemporary music today. It's very positive. It's music with a message and something that's meant to teach people of how we should act to other people, and in a very kind and genuine way. Aki, so he went by Aki Zen. Does anybody know what Zen means? Can you tell us?
Like peaceful and tranquil.
Exactly. So So Zen is a form of Mahayana Buddhism, which emphasizes meditation and intuition. Can anyone tell me what intuition is?
I think it's like what we think, or like intuition.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's what you think. It's what you feel. And we can have good intuitions and we can have bad intuitions. It's our soul and our heart. It's thinking with our heart, really, and knowing. So if you have a bad intuition about someone that you don't want to be around because they're mean, or say you have a good intuition about maybe even something you're doing in life, and you're like, wow, I feel really good about this, and it's something that it comes within you. There's nothing you can. And a lot of people, we see with our eyes rather than with our intuition. And when we see with our eyes, I think a lot of times that's what creates a lot of the problems we have, like vanity and judgment and oppression and racism and segregation and all of these things, is because we judge with our eyes rather than with our hearts. And Stephen, his music and his personality and the way that he carried himself in life was to judge, not to judge, but to really, he sang with his heart, and he showed that to everyone, and he had a very strong internal light inside of him that he shed everywhere that he went. And what was so amazing is that he was able to express that through his music. And the beauty of that is that his music will never die. It will always live on. And you guys can still listen to his music. I'm sure Siobhan can point you where to do so. But what was so special about Aki, and when I met him, was he really did have a genuine light inside of him. When I was a young child, my mom said that I had that same light, and I still feel like I do carry that light. And I feel like certain people are put on this earth to genuinely help others and to show compassion, and when Kai was saying tranquility and peace, that's really what Zen means, is going within, and by doing that, you're able to see people not for how they look, but for who they are inside, and to really honor and to really appreciate that. And when we spread that kind of notion, we really can heal the world, and we can create a stronger community, and we can create stronger friendships. And a lot of these things, I feel like in modern times especially, are not seen as important anymore. I mean, how many of you guys have cell phones? So that's good, less than half. So as you know, nowadays everything is computers, everything is social media, and Steven and I came from a time, and we're not even that old, as you can see, where we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have social media. We had books, and we had pencils, and we had paper. And that is what made us intelligent, strong men, is being able to learn and to read, and then also to have the ability to write and to express ourselves. And believe it or not, being able to write and read well is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever have. And I'm not just saying that because we're in a school. I'm saying that because when I went to college and got a degree in creative writing, and yes, that didn't translate into me making a lot of money, but it was priceless in every endeavor in life, and even in getting jobs later in life. If you can write and read well, it's paramount. And Aki, Stephen definitely was a very intelligent man, and if you listen to his music, it's more than music. It's like almost like a sermon, to teach people. So, you guys have any questions?
Okay, you're up. This is your part. This is the interview.
Wait, what? But he already... What?
Okay, what are the questions? We just went over them in the office.
What do you do? What do you cover that? Like, what was your process to get here? Like, what did you have to go through to become a hip-hop artist?
Well, to become an artist is very difficult in society, just because typically it's hard to make money as an artist. And so I myself, and I think similar to your father, had to work lots of jobs, and I put myself through school. I worked full-time when I was very young, and I know that your father did the same thing. I know he went, I believe, to get his real estate license. He was going to go to nursing school. I know he always worked very hard because he had a family. And so artists like us, we would work very hard during the day, and then so that we could do our music, and that's kind of, it's like art and expression can be more powerful than money, and all this other things that we're taught are very important, because that is who you are, and that's something that you can share with the world that no one can take away with you. And like we talked about before, it's an everlasting legacy. It never goes away. And so yes, I mean, you have to work very hard to achieve anything in life that is meaningful, and be very passionate about it. And sometimes that means you have to work jobs that you don't really like to do, just so that you can afford to do what you do like to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well said. What are some other questions?
Trying to remember.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah. Do you know who 20 Pilots are?
Yes, I do.
Do you know them?
I don't know them personally, but I have heard some of their music. It's really good.
Do you know if there's any way to get an email or something
from them?
Yeah.
Well, I honestly don't know their music too well.
Oh, I know.
He knows.
I know.
He knows.
A lot.
I think they're doing
Yeah, you guys would probably be a little more versed at getting their email
So,
than I would, honestly.
in this room and these abilities, going onto their fan website is the best way to reach out. And
Yeah.
fans, maybe talk about the importance of fans.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think fans and artists go hand in hand. I think one of the problems with a lot of really popular artists today that they just kind of become jerks and they don't honor their fans, and they don't realize that the only reason that they're on the platform that they are and they're making the kind of money they are and they have the success and fame and all the things that come along with that is because of the fans, because of the people that bought and supported their music. So with artists like Steven and myself, we were, since we weren't, huge hip-hop stars, we were able to connect with our fans, and our fans in a sense were our people, our family, our friends, and then we created a really huge community, which it's almost more than just fans. It's like a family of you may have been given this God-given talent to be a writer or to be an engineer or a teacher or any slew of things, and we were given the talent to share our words, and the people that listen to those words are equally important, because without them we wouldn't exist. And one thing I like to say too, I remember when we were young, we really did cultivate a strong music and hip hop community in Albuquerque that never existed, and Steven played a huge role in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Stop looking at me and smiling.
Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, you mentioned having to work to support your passions. I have a friend that is a jazz drummer in Seattle, and in the early days he was working, ATMs, during the day, and so he could play, the jazz scene in Seattle at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an age-old story. I mean, hardly any artist just gets to, do their thing and not worry about money.
Yeah, he was with a group, and the group wanted to go to LA to make it big, and he said, "I've got a family, I got 2 kids, I can't break away," so he stayed, and the group went to LA and became Kenny G, but John stayed in Seattle and became a very noted band instructor at different schools, and his career path took a different way, and he was quite successful in being a band instructor at different high schools.
It's probably a more healthy path, honestly. At the end of the day.
But he laments that Kenny G doesn't return his phone calls. But
trying to think if is there anything else that they?
I think you covered most everything. Kai was going to interview, but you covered, like you said, you covered a lot of it. That was very special to hear.
Well, Steven is a very, very special man, and definitely touched me at a young age, and was one of the few people any music industry, there's a lot of not so cool people, and especially in hip hop, there's a lot of competition, and it can be, you can meet a lot of jerks basically, and Steven was always one of those people that I always wanted to be around, because he was genuinely a nice, kind, caring person, and put his family first. So I definitely, have nothing but amazing things to say about him, and he taught me a lot, and I'll never forget him. And I actually have a song that I wrote for him that I never published, which I'm gonna give to Kai and Siobhan, and if Kai wants to share that with you guys.
Or Bob.
Bob.
Carl. Yeah. But if he feels like he wants to share that with you, that would be really cool.
Yeah, and then Kai, did you want to play one of Bob? Sorry, Bob. Did you want to play one of Daddy's songs?
Sure.
it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to hear?
Rainfalls or Zen are really good examples of the epitome of your daddy.
Forgetting his own password at the moment.
Should have brought my Bluetooth speaker.
Me too.
Sorry.
So that was a good song to represent who Stephen was.
Nope.
But maybe one of these days we can bring in a better speaker and play some of the more funny comedic. He was really good at wordplay, and he was really funny.
Yeah, I remember when he won, there's this thing in hip-hop called battling, where two MCs go around. Have you guys ever seen the movie 8 Mile?
Yeah.
So the end of 8 Mile, where that's what MC battle is. But basically, two guys go up against each other and they have a minute or something back and forth, and they just come up with the most clever things they can say about the other opponent, and then it's based on the crowd participation. Whoever the crowd thinks is she said the cleverest, wordplay, the funniest, and it's a very skilled art form, like he says in the song, craftsmanship. I mean, it takes years and years to even have that ability to kind of, to make things up off the top of your head, make them rhyme, and also make them clever and intelligent. And I still remember when Steven went to Arizona and battled No Can Do, who is now he's a pretty well-known hip-hop artist, and Aki won. And although they said he didn't, he totally won, and everybody knew it. And I still remember watching that. I'll never forget that. So he was definitely highly skilled at just improvisation as well as writing.
So how do you generate the background music? Is that computer generated or?
I mean, different producers have different styles. Hip hop music traditionally, what's so cool about it is it's music from, it's something from nothing. It's was originally developed in the Bronx in late 70s, early 80s, when Reagan era and stuff. They basically removed all musical instruments and things from education, and so really poor urban kids figured out that you could take a turntable and they would take this is when like disco music and stuff was popular, and you'd find the best for like the time when everyone's dancing to the song, which is called a loop. So you take those best 4 measures, like the funkiest part of say a James Brown song or any song, and that's called sampling. And what they would do before there was even any machines that were called samplers or computers is they would find that best part of a record, and they would take 2 records and they would match them up. And that was how they first started making hip-hop beats, was taking, because they didn't have any money and they didn't have any instruments, and so they would take the beats from pre-recorded music and make their own beat out of it, which is absolutely phenomenal. There's a show on Netflix called The Get Down, which you guys should watch if you can. It's produced by Nas, but it's about the history of hip-hop, and it shows how the first beats were made. And to get to answer your question, so when they Grandmaster Flash and what's the other guy from the other borough? I'm drawing a blank. Cool Herc, DJ Cool Herc. So they were like these boroughs of basically just really poor people. They started creating this sound, and when they started doing that, it's basically stealing parts of music and making their own music with a drum beat and a rhythm and a melody. There was kind of like, well, this is never going to be seen as a viable form of music. I mean, back then it was like, well, these are just, how are we even going to reproduce this in a studio, because it's basically just taking other people's music. So what happened with the hip-hop music became the biggest form of music in the world, and as time went on, that it became so popular just by how they were doing it with 2 turntables, to where then they could afford to actually hire session musicians to replay the music. And then as time went on too, you have through the 80s and the 90s, which was the golden era of hip-hop, when you had producers like DJ Premier and Pete Rock and these guys that were using what are called samplers. So they were machines that they started developing so that you could actually take loops from pre-recorded music. So most of that music, back when there was a real big record industry before MP3s, was they would say, and I quote James Brown because he's probably the most sampled artist in hip hop, and they would find the funkiest part, and it's just like 4 measures. You guys know what 4 measures of music is? It's just like 4 beats. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's typically. And so then there's all kinds of legal things regarding, well, can you steal somebody else's music and then make it your own? So there's this thing called licensing for samples. So if you do choose to make beats, and now it's been evolved so much, but where record companies would, so say you wanted to take something from a Beatles record or a Michael Jackson record, your record company would have to license that sample, and a certain percentage of your record sales from the new beat that you made out of that would go to that artist. What I do a lot now, and I when I started making beats when I was 18, I would do a lot of sampling, and at that point it's like, unless you're making money off of the music, a bigger artist is not going to sue you for taking their sample. You have to actually make money. What I've learned in all my years of producing is I use a lot of live instruments now. So the cool thing is you could even be all art is a replication of itself. Like all art in a sense is any popular song, in other words. There's like so many popular pop songs doing the exact same chord progression, exact same key. So it's not really stealing, it's like taking having a canvas and choosing what color palette you're gonna use, and that's the instruments. It's like, well, and I've even been inspired by, say, an older song, and then you can get a bass player, you can get a guitar player, keyboard, and replay that. Or a lot of times I've been, say, inspired by a sample of a pre-recorded thing, and I just use that as a bass and then play a bunch of other stuff over it with keyboards and stuff and make it my own. But that really is the beauty of hip-hop and making beats, and the instrumental palette behind the lyrics is it was accessible for people that didn't have any money and didn't have any other avenue to express themselves.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I know said documentary, watched it. It's great. It's
amazing.
Really interesting, yes.
The Get Down?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's kind of like KRS-One, who's a iconic MC that he's known as the teacher, and he's him and Africa Bambaataa. So these guys that started in the 80s there's principles of hip hop, which are love, respect, community, and what's the other one? There's like, it's all good stuff. What is it? I mean, there's 4 elements of hip hop,
Honesty?
but like it's basically they were trying to say that, hey, this is about community. This is about making our lives better. This isn't about drugs and violence and all this other stuff that is going on in our communities. This was a way for them to unite and be positive and teach their children a way of positivity. But what's funny is when KRS-One first started and said that he was going to be an MC, his mom just laughed at him. It's because an MC, there wasn't MCs, and that was like saying I'm going to go sell ice cubes to Eskimos, So it's pretty amazing how big the art form of hip hop has become.
Oh, and how it influenced current music genres today.
And it's unfortunate the turn that it's taken, and hopefully that will end soon. But
Stop smiling and looking at me.
I'm your mother, Bob. I can smile.
That's what my mom does. She says it all the time.
So what are your hopes and dreams for yourself in the near future or far future?
Well, I have 2 daughters myself, and one of them, Annabelle, actually goes to this school. And she's in Miss Midget's 5th grade class. So when I was younger, I actually toured as far as Europe with music. But as now, I mean, I'm really just focused on getting my studio going and film facility and just being the best dad that I can be is my main thing. Everything else comes second to that. So, it's just such a blessing. I just performed this Sunday, and I continue to perform and do music. And when Annabelle is, in college, I feel that I would like to travel again with music and do that. So I'm slowly. I was with groups for years. This one group, the Tubers, for like almost 15, 16 years. And just now I've kind of been doing my own solo stuff. So I'm slowly pushing it. What's nice is that it's not something that I'm putting everything into and having, because the entertainment industry is very difficult. But on the back end of actually running a recording studio, recording other people and film is something you can actually make money off of doing, and then still have the time to create your own works. But there's not that pressure of like, hey, I gotta make this hit or I gotta go on tour, because I stopped going on tour just so I could be with my daughters as much as possible and not miss anything. So that's really my goals are symbiotic with raising my daughters. But that's made my music way more beautiful, honestly, and that's made my life. Once you do that in anything in life and you put your family first and then your passion second, it's like everything kind of falls into place, because you're still honoring both, but it's never good to put your career before your family.
Amen. Amen.
Trust me.
Glad that golden nugget of truth made it into this speech. Thank you.
Definitely.
Any other questions?
No?
Well, thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I think it was very interesting. We'll probably have some class discussions.
Great.
It's given us some things to look into. Check out the videos. That would be fun.
Nice, nice. And yeah, I should have brought some stickers so you guys can check out some of my music too. But
We can get him.
okay.
We can get him.
Sweet, sweet. Awesome.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yes,
God, I
yes.
appreciate you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.